Hey, buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Hearthstone is the game, and this is my budget burn Warlock. Now, that might not be a class archetype that you're familiar with, and that's because it's a new name I've given this deck specifically. So the story here is I'm building a budget Warlock deck, and when I build a budget deck, I really mean a budget deck. I mean it has to cost 600 or less arcane dust to craft, and of course this is a Gadgetzan version of my budget Warlock deck, so it needs to include at least a few Gadgetzan cards, so people who are new to the game buying those Gadgetzan packs get a couple of these key cards, look for decks with including those cards, can build a competitive list. Now, of course, this is not the kind of list that's going to get you all the way to legend ranks, but it is good enough to get you out onto the ranked ladder, help you climb from rank 25 to 15, and maybe even a little farther with some dedication and some good luck and some win streaks. So, that said, as I was trying to put together a budget Warlock list that included Gadgetzan cards that remained below 600 dust, I found it quite a challenge to fit into the two most common archetypes of Warlock, the first of which is Zoo Warlock, which is a more aggressive minion-based strategy where you build a nice wide board early in the game, continue to capitalize on that board, and just beat down your opponent with lots of minions and efficiency. The second kind of Warlock that's more popular is a more control-oriented Warlock, which usually means more specifically a Reno or Kazakus-style Warlock with 0 duplicate cards. And that's just not possible on a budget list for 600 dust. First off, because you need Kazakus and Reno, which are both legendaries that are much harder to acquire than 600 dust can afford. So I had to get a little more creative and find a list that included a handful of Gadgetzan cards, and that's really where this list started, is with cards like Abyssal Enforcer and Fellfire Potion. So these two cards, and what they have in common, really is only that they do unavoidable area of effect damage. So no matter how many taunt minions your opponent has up, this can still hit their face, and it can clear their board. So I got a little creative, I got a little different here, and I thought, well, how can we build a deck that synergizes with that? And essentially, this is a deck that has some early game minions and early game options, but really plays more like almost a control style Warlock that just eventually does enough damage to kill your opponents. So it's late game oriented in the fact that you have a lot of early minions that can apply pressure, like a Flame Imp, for instance. You have ways to buff those minions with Demon Fire to apply even more early pressure. You have mid-range stuff that both helps you clear your opponent's board with Hellfire, but also chips away at your opponent's health total, so it does incidental damage. So the idea is just chip away 3 damage here, chip away 4 damage here, chip away 2 damage here, and then in the late game, you essentially apply tons of pressure with really big minions and really big spells that continue to chip away at your opponent's health total. So suddenly they get a big board because you just don't have enough minions or enough clears in the early to mid game. Well, you play Fellfire Potion, you wipe out their board, and you do 5 damage to their face. And then you play Abyssal Enforcer, and you do 3 more damage to their face. And that's all complemented with things like charging minions in Reckless Rocketeer, Wolf Rider, and just straight up burst damage with Power Overwhelming and Soulfire. And that's why this is a burn Warlock, because you can eventually just burn your opponent down. And I wasn't sure this was going to work. I am very curious still how it does work, but I've been playing it and testing it, and I'm winning a lot of games. There are games sometimes where I'll play Flame Imp and buff it with a Demon Fire, and my opponent doesn't have an answer, and the Flame Imp will do 15 damage over the first 3 turns of the game. So I'll follow up with Wolf Riders and a Reckless Rocketeer, and the game will just be over. There's other games where I just have very efficient board clears with things like Fire Potion or Abyssal Enforcer, and just use this big body to apply so much pressure in the late game that I can string together a couple Power Overwhelmings or Soul Fires to win the game. Sometimes it's a really hard-fought battle, and a top deck Reckless Rocketeer gives me just enough damage to win. The only downside, of course, is that with most of these spells, you are dealing damage to yourself as well. So if your opponent gets ahead or has their own burst damage, for instance, like a mage with a fireball or frostbolt, you can just lose games because they'll have lethal too. So it's kind of an all-in strategy where you have to go for it, you have to try to find wins, you have to play to your outs, because otherwise your opponent might just do that in return and burn you down. So It burns your opponent, it burns you, but somehow it doesn't burn your win rate. There are still ways to win games with this deck. So this is a little bit of an unusual concoction, a strange little list. As far as other interesting cards, I should talk about a few. Demon Fire is not a card you typically see, but the thing this deck needs is a way to advantage those early minions you play in Voidwalker and Flame Whip, and this gives you a really strong turn 1 into turn 2, and there's just not a lot of good 2-drops to run in budget deck lists like this that just do damage. So this does that, but it also serves as another removal spell, because you can do 2 damage to enemy minions just to kill them, and sometimes that will make a difference if you can't use this as a buff. So it's kind of a baby Shadow Bolt in many ways, and you do have to clear your opponent's board so that you can start to gain an advantage in the late game with these 4 powerhouse cards near the end, essentially. Cabal Chemist is another interesting card. Another Gadgetzan card at that, one of the, I guess, probably 3 or 4 in this list. This one's interesting because sometimes there's just really, really good potions, and you can land the right one. Sometimes you might need another Fellfire potion. In fact, there is another good Warlock potion that I considered adding to this deck in the first place, which is the Blast Crystal potion. Normally this isn't that strong of a card because it kills your mana crystals, and anti-ramp, as I'm calling it, it's a really, really bad thing because you want mana. But in this deck, you don't really care so much because you still got a lot to work with and you're just trying to end the game pretty fast anyway. So it's not as punishing, and sometimes you just have to destroy that big taunt minion or destroy the value minion that your opponent has played. So that, among many other value potions, can really swing a game. Plus, it's just a nice little 4-drop too, and you need to play on curve. So there's a bit of an awkward curve, but it really helps level that out. And then, Fellfire Potion is just an amazing board clear, and you don't have that many minions in this deck, so you very rarely risk killing your own stuff, so there's usually a big advantage here. Sometimes you can even kill your opponent and yourself and force a draw instead of actually losing a game, which is nice too. Abyssal Enforcer, the same kind of thing, just a really high value minion. A Hellfire attached to a giant body. So you have the Hellfire and you have the Abyssal Enforcer. You can just shred your opponent's boards with ease with this deck. So, I usually at this point would recommend an upgraded version of this list, and I tried to build that, but frankly, this list is so unique and so different and so unusual that there's not really a path to move forward. In other words, there's very, very few cards I would even substitute if I could, because I made this list so specifically, and there's just not that many replacements. Like, I consider Doomguard, for instance, but discarding cards actually can be rather punishing in this list, and it's not about the 5/7 body so much as just the damage. So Reckless Rocketeer meets many of the same needs as Doomguard, but doesn't cost 100 dust to craft. There are a few other cards here and there that I considered adding for an upgraded version of the list, but really, I don't know that they were any better than what exists right here. And beyond that, I don't even know that I would want to recommend you commit to this kind of deck, because it's not something we've ever really seen before. It's very unusual. It's my creation, so I think it's good in and of itself as a budget entry-level deck for beginners, but I don't really think it goes beyond that too much. So the cards you craft here, they aren't wasted by any means. Abyssal Enforcer is a fantastic card. Cabal Chemist seems like a pretty decent card. So you're still going to get value out of the cards you craft. Flame Imp, for instance, is a fantastic card in Zoo. So it's not like you're wasting the dust, it's just you're building a deck that works for right now and accruing some cards that you'll eventually use in some other scenario as well, as long as you plan to play Warlock. So I'm not comfortable recommending an upgraded list. I think this is just going to have to do for my budget Warlock list for Gadgetzan. So, all that said, what I think we need to do now is go ahead and take it into some games and see it in action. But I normally play ranked games, but at this point I've already climbed to rank 10. And although that's not by any means a super high rank, I do think it's a little bit beyond what this kind of deck is capable of. And in fact, all my budget decks, I really think, cap out around rank 10. It's very, very difficult to win games higher than that because you just keep getting better and better opponents with better and better cards and more refined decks. So your win rate with these budget decks will start to decline pretty significantly. And I don't really think that's the best way to showcase what this deck is all about. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and take it into casual I don't think this is necessarily the best way to showcase the deck either, because it's just you don't necessarily play top tier decks in casual mode, but sometimes you do, and hopefully we'll run into some real decks to see this in action against actual meta choices for people who might be completing quests or just testing out small variations on popular meta decks. So I've played this deck a little bit in ranked, but more so in casual, and it's been working in both. The win rate's not by any means outstanding because this is, again, a budget deck, but it's certainly good enough to win you games and climb to rank 15. So as far as the mulligans are concerned, it's our 1-drops above everything else. And if you can get a 1-drop into the 2-mana buff, it's even better, because that means you can really build a strong minion. That 5/4 Flame Imp can be absolutely ridiculous to remove early in the game. So a warrior is a tough matchup. Sometimes, if they're more defense-oriented, a more control archetype warrior, it can be tough just because this is all about chipping away at their health total and doing damage, and they have a lot of ways to recover that health. So if they survive your initial flurry, it can be really, really tough. So this signals Zoo. He's going to think we're a more Zoo-style deck, even though that's not really the case at all. Most Zoos don't run Hellfire or Fellfire Potion. That would be quite opposite their goal. So this is a Dragon Warrior. Not my favorite. We're going to go ahead and life tap here. We could play the Voidwalker to protect this, but it's just a bad trade. Hopefully he'll trade anyway. And we can just go face. If he doesn't trade, if he has some other way to clean this up, we'll tidy up the board with the Hellfire soon. And we want to chip away this health total anyway. But that was a really good start for him. That's not as good. He's not going to trade. Okay, we'll do this. We can do this. This is so good against Warrior, but I think we have to life tap. Here, man, I guess I still can't play this, but I want to. I'm going to hold it just because I anticipate this is going to die, and I'm going to want to Hellfire soon, and I don't want to send out another minion. It's because it might mean my Flame Imp just gets Hellfired anyway, so. If he goes face here, we're in a good spot. Yeah, so we can just trade in Hellfire as expected. The problem, of course, is that we're down to 14 already. So that's pretty risky. But that's what this deck does. It lives like that. We take a lot of damage. There's even more. So this would be a great play if we had the mana, but we don't have the mana. So we have to figure out something else. I guess we'll just Hellfire again, even though it's incredibly inefficient, and Voidwalker. And we're down to 8, so we gotta be real careful moving forward, right? We've unfortunately drawn only damage that hurts both of us and none of our more direct damage stuff. I don't know that I can get through this very easily. Shadow Bolt helps, but not a ton. I can Fellfire to kill it, but that puts me at 3, which means most of my plays end up killing me at that point. So we could Dread Infernal just to get the body out. We could try for a good potion, but with only 2 mana remaining, I don't know what we'd get that'd be significant. Power Overwhelming doesn't actually set up a trade, so it's not very useful. We could Power Overwhelming and Shadow Bolt, but that feels like such a waste of Shadow Bolt. And we lose our minion, and we could only play Acidic Swamp Ooze, which I think we want to save anyway. So we're just going to do this. And hope that this lives somehow so that this is unable to hit our face and kill us. Because something like Korkron or Gorehowl will just end the game. Well played. Yep. Okay, that was tough. I'm not gonna lie, that was tough. The early trades hurt us. I mean, the 2 charging Alexstrasza's champs really hurt. We didn't get off to a bad curve, but we fell a little flat in the mid. Couldn't do stuff like Shadow Bolt his Alexstrasza's champ. That would have been a great play. So we were left a little dry there. So we'll keep this Demon Fire. This is a great 1-2 if we can find our 1-drops. It's not super likely, unfortunately. There's only 4 total 1-drops. So, but it's still worth the chance because that's just such a game-breaking play if you pull it off. It's alright to life tap on 2 with this deck as well. You don't have to get out really fast because you just have so many mid-game AoE spells to recover that you can be fine. Second Demon Fire would be good against a Flame Imp if he plays one, since he does appear to be a zoo. So this is a pretty interesting 5-mana play, but commits a lot of cards to one thing. We could Soulfire, Demon Fire this. I'm trying to decide if it's actually worth it or if I'd rather just play a big Flame Imp. I think I'll rather just play a big Flame Imp. It theoretically makes the trade. I can do stuff like Soulfire trade if he doesn't kill it somehow. It's not very likely that he kills it, honestly. If he does, it would most likely be with this minion anyway, so it'd be a favorable trade regardless. The Wolf Rider is unfortunately being shut out completely by this Voidwalker. It's very, very annoying. So I think we'll just go ahead and Demon Fire this, and alternatively we could... No, we only have 4 mana. I was thinking we could Wolf Rider trade and just Demon Fire the Flame Imp again to make it very large. But it would go down to 4 health again, and it just would be too susceptible to trades from Abusive Sergeant and things like that. So instead, I think we'll just play it more straight and do this. And we want to be able to play this, even though there's some high-value stuff here that's likely to get discarded. It's okay. We really just want the minion out there. Yeah, so we lost a good card, but it's honestly not one of the most important cards. At this point, we're doing 6 damage. We have 7 in hand. Like, we're already hitting him very, very hard. Not that we had power overwhelming right away by any means, but oh goodness, that is not a sign of what I thought this deck was about. So we can't play this. We'll life tap and probably just play the Wolf Rider. I'm actually not going to make a trade here, mainly because of the Death Rattle here. I don't want this to die right away, and it doesn't look like it's going to, which means we may protect these minions, and we have a ton of damage in hand if anything survives, right? So there's some advantages to just stalling out, applying damage pressure. Gosh, he's discarding some good cards. He's not landing his Disco Lock stuff that he wants. So it looks like he's just going to be dead here, especially if he life taps. I mean, my goodness. Oh my gosh. We have so much damage. And there you go. A lot of damage. That's how you win games with this deck. And honestly, he got off to a fast start. That was a zoo start. It was the damage we drew, right? It was just 8 damage from hand. It's really hard to deal with. That's a burn for you. It's kind of a weird comparison, but I'd almost in some ways compare this deck to a Freeze Mage. Some people are like, what? But it's all about essentially having removal and then finishing off the game late with burst damage. It looks a lot different than Freeze Mage in how that's accomplished, because you don't have, you know, Ice Block or Ice Barriers to preserve your life nearly as long, and in fact you often kill yourself. But at a root level, thematically, it's not all that different. It's control, control, control in the game. Okay, so this is a great start. Voidwalker and a Demon Fire. It's really not as strong as Flame Imp and a Demon Fire, dependent on the class, but it's more than enough. 3/5 minion on turn 2 is going to be just fine. It'll be even better because it'll trade into this. Now, that said, he's going to get a free card draw, but I don't even mind because it means he's not killing this, and it sets up a great play for me. So, it'll be fine. And it's a priest. I mean, I don't want him to have a ton of cards, obviously, but we'll probably be able to end the game just from burst damage at some point. So Hopefully it doesn't become an issue. This is good too, but this actually plays into Shadow Word Death a little too much. He might Shadow Word Pain this anyway. I mean, we might do it anyway just because I don't have another great alternative. Yeah, I will just for sure to kill this. That means I'm going to get 2 mana worth of value out of this because it allows me to kill a 2-mana minion right away. And I'll probably even coin out the Acidic Swamp Ooze as well. This is unlikely to get weapon value, of course, against a priest. Yeah, if you Shadow Word Death here, it's not even that good because he uses basically all of his mana. He'd float 1 mana. If he had a Power Word Shield, it'd be nice, but otherwise we'll get a nice free trade here. Be able to play the Wolf Rider, start applying damage to face. Hopefully he can't kill this, and it's just even more damage to face. That'd be fantastic. Twilight Guardian would be a bad thing for us to see. We would kill it with Acidic Swamp Ooze and Wolf Rider. So there's the Shadow Word Death, yeah. It's really not that bad. He spent quite a bit to deal with our guy. But we did have 3 cards into that, so... Still rather efficient for him. The good news for him is he's used both of his card draw mechanics already. Holy Nova would hurt a little, just because I don't have a good follow-up. I'll have to life tap and hope I get something playable. But he'd probably feel bad about Holy Novaing 2/3 This is thankfully not a mage where he could ping this stuff off. So, oh, that doesn't feel like a very good play. But it's actually not that bad against us because I don't have a great clean way to deal with it. I can't even play this next turn right now because it'll kill my guys. So we'll life tap and just play another Ooze. This is still going to suck for Holy Nova. If he gets a big board, though, we've got answers, that's for sure. Look at all this unavoidable damage. That's 1, 3 is 4, 7, 12 unavoidable damage right now, plus the 9 on board. It's 21 damage. I mean, it's going to take a while, but... And he's got heals, but still. It just takes 1 or 2 chargers, and suddenly we're winning the game. He's going to play a Draconid Operative, it looks like, maybe. I don't know. Oh, the second Cabal. Cool. Right back where we started. So I think, I don't know, this I can trade and play the Dread and clear his board. I just can't decide if it's worth it. Not if he heals this way, though. Yeah, I can't now, so it's probably not worth it. But I don't have a... Oh, that's a good play. We can do this. I'm going to do... Normally you'd life tap to draw your card first before you play cards out of hand, but since this gives us a card we don't know what it's going to be, I'm going to go ahead and do it first. Oh, interesting. That's... Might be helpful, not super helpful, though. Shadow Bolt's good. Now I wish we'd life tapped first, in hindsight, but we wouldn't have had any way to know. So we'll go face. As you might expect. If he clears my board and plays some stuff, it looks like Fellfire is going to be a strong play. Abyssal Enforcer could be good too. Depending on how he trades or doesn't trade here, we might just go ahead and clean up his board and apply a huge minion, right? Because if he attacks one of these ways and sends these both to 3, then we'll be fine. Even if he doesn't, even if he heals here and this lives, we can trade. Oh, interesting. That's good. I think I'll still Enforcer. It puts us down to 3/3. It probably doesn't set up any trades or anything for him. I can't think of a 3 damage way for him to kill this efficiently. He might have something else, but it's not like it matters that this is alive. It's not incredibly relevant. So he's down to 14. How much can we do right now? Just 5. Just 5. Oh, that's the way to do 3 damage. That's it. He did have it. Blackwing Corruptor is the perfect way in Dragon Priest to do 3 damage. Shadow Bolt's looking good on this, though. We don't have a great follow-up, so I guess we'll life tap first. We can play the Voidwalker, but it's just not very exciting. Need to make sure he doesn't get too many turns where he's healing himself. That's one risk we have. This will be a good play, maybe. I don't want to kill my own guy, but sometimes you have to. If it means getting the larger minion out. Oh, it's great now. Yeah, we'll just have to. We'll just go face and sacrifice our own minion. First we can life tap, though. Okay, that's more damage. I like to see that. He's down to 14. This is 4 if this lives. If this lives, it's almost... It'd be, like, impossible for us. Because this is... I mean... There's just no way we can't kill him if this lives. If he doesn't... He's not Reno or anything, so... That's not going to live, though. We can do 8 anytime we want with this. We can play this as another big guy. I'm on 10 mana, so I might actually just Hellfire Dread Infernal. Oh, that won't kill this, though. Shoot. I guess we'll just Fellfire Potion to kill that. Takes me down to 10, but it takes him down to a very, very small amount. I'm considering casting Hellfire. No, I won't. I'll just cast Greater Healing Potion on myself. Just to make sure I avoid any kind of crazy shenanigans. Because I have 9 damage guaranteed right here. I just can't imagine him surviving this burst. We have so much damage in hand right now. That as long as we have a lead, I think we're okay. Oh, that's a good way to survive burst. That's a good way to survive some burst. That was a clutch draw for him. So that's okay. We'll Hellfire through it, and we'll play a big guy. So again, he's got a 4-point heal, so he can go to 15, but we just have so much damage. We have to be able to find lethal here soon. This is 9, and 6 is 15. Assuming he doesn't kill this or taunt, we should have it. These get a little less good with minions on the board, so we'll have to figure that out. You know, don't underestimate the 1 damage on this guy either. He's not nearly as good as the Abyssal Enforcer, but he's still good. 1 damage is 1 damage, and he's a giant body for 6 mana. Like, this is a good card. A lot of times, just being able to do 1 damage to minions is fantastic.
Are you mocking me?
We can get through that with Hellfire. If I do, is that lethal? No, he's healing himself, so it won't be lethal. We'll have to make sure we don't have lethal here. Hellfire, Mortal Coil. Oh my goodness. That changes things, perhaps. That has to be lethal, right? Yeah, it is. So we can just get through the taunt and double power overwhelming this guy, and it's game. That's the Burn Warlock. We just beat a legit Dragon Priest. Just beat a Dragon Priest. Great deck. It's pretty cool, wasn't it? That was really, really fun. So, yeah, I mean, you can see how we win games. It's just unavoidable damage. I've never actually seen anybody play a deck like this. I'm not trying to sound like cocky, like, oh, I made something really, really awesome. I just think it's cool that this is an interaction I've never really thought about before, and it really just came out because of the new Mean Streets of Gadgetzan cards. There's just a lot of ways for Warlocks to pound people in the face now. Of course, the problem is your own health total. I didn't do the math, but we might have been dead in that game if we hadn't had that Greater Healing Potion. But that's why we run our Cabal card. So here's another Priest, and we'll look for better stuff than this. Ooze is not bad necessarily, but it just doesn't line up that well against Wormrust Agent or anything, so it's not usually great. That's much better, Flame Imp. It still lines up poorly against Wormrest, but it's cheaper, so sometimes I get it out fast enough it may not matter. He may be able to coin out Wormrest, I mean, but we'll just Soulfire if that happens, so we're in an okay spot. Assuming he's Dragon Priest, we have no idea, but... So this is, I mean, this deck really good against decks that don't have a ton of burst damage. Anybody who has that Gorehowl or, you know, Grom, not to stay in the Warrior, but anybody that can string together a lot of damage, maybe a Hunter or a Mage, maybe even another Warlock with a combo or something if you run the game too long. Can be really problematic because your health, you've noticed our health is skimming the bottom there. It's very risky. So Mujinzu's thinking about his plays. Coin Shadow Word Pain. I didn't expect that. I don't mind that at all. He had to use the coin and a pretty solid removal spell on my 1-drop. And we got another little guy out. So he may not have an answer for this one at all. Let's hope not. Yeah, that's fine. We can deal with that. We'll just trade it and play the Wolf Rider. Priest typically can't deal with 1 health stuff very efficiently, so... Unless he gets like a tentacle off of that, we should be fine. I don't love giving up 3 damage there, but it just gives me a board advantage. Prevents stuff like Power Word Shield. So our hand's a little awkward. The Wolf Rider's good because it's just a minion. That's sort of annoying. We can Soulfire it, but I don't necessarily want to lose my Fellfire potion. He's already coined, so we know he's not going to have a Holy Nova next turn. It's unlikely he has a board clear. So I guess in that case it's actually worth it. Plus we might discard the other Soulfire, which could be good, could be bad. We lost the Fellfire. That's okay. I'm just worried more than anything that signaled what our deck's about. Like, and by the way, I don't love sending Soulfire into that minion either since it's such a low minion, but it threatened our minions, right? And like I said, I don't think he's going to have a good way to clear these. So, in essence, this is annoying. I'm going to tap, see what I get. Oh, man. I can't lose the Reckless Rocketeer. I need it, so I can't Soulfire. I have to trade 2 of these in. I'm not happy about it. I want to be able to Soulfire and just trade 1 in so I can keep another minion on the board, but I just can't give up this card. It's too much damage. So there's the Holy Nova. We're going to follow up with 5 to the face. He's down to 12. This is probably going to die, but there's a chance it lives, which is crazy. See, without this, if I'd Soulfired and gave up the Reckless Rocketeer, I would have been in a bad... So I don't even mind that. That does 2 damage to him. I don't even care. So let's life tap. That's not very helpful. So we've got a play, thankfully, but it's not my favorite play. Hopefully he doesn't have another Shadow Word Pain. That would be really annoying since I invested in this before it got to actually attack. We have 7 damage, theoretically. He could go up to 12 as far as we know. Maybe higher. He might have Reno. He's got Reno, so that's really tough. Dread Infernal. It's actually pretty good. Well, it's not that good, is it? I can't get to Mortal Coil or Soulfire. I guess I'll just life tap and see what I get. Shadow Bolt, Mortal Coil is not very nice either. Shadow Bolt trade is okay. It's not that exciting. Shadow Bolt Soulfire is just too risky. I don't love this play, but I think I gotta try it. There was no other good way to kill the Reno. Okay, I don't even hate that. It's really hard to get this Mortal Coil to actually do what I want it to do because of the Soulfire. Like, I need to Soulfire and then Mortal Coil, but the Soulfire is always going to discard the Mortal Coil. So there's a lot of silliness happening, basically. So it's going to be tough for me to come back in this game, for the record. That Reno, obviously, back-breaking. I'm just going to sit. Just going to sit. I mean, now we've got 29 damage to chunk through. We're at 14 already. He's got the board. Like, I need a Fellfire Potion to clear this stuff. Pretty badly, in fact. Like, I really need a Fellfire Potion. Dread Infernal actually does help. A little bit. The question is, do I need to kill the Bran or the Bookworm? I guess I can actually kill both, can't I? Yeah, I can. I give up a power overwhelming, but I... Well, maybe not. I draw a card, so... I give up a power overwhelming. It turns out I give up a power overwhelming either way. Alright. That's not so bad. We're 8 health. 6 health functionally. I got a life tap next turn, so... Actually, 4 health. Oh. Oh, that's gross. That's sort of gross, guys. That's sort of gross. So we'll life tap. I can actually kill that guy. I think. Yeah, I can kill this guy, but I can't. No, I can kill both. I can actually technically stay alive here. Not that I think it's gonna matter. I got 1 card to get me out of whatever happens next, and half my cards do damage to myself. So I don't think we're gonna be. I don't think we're gonna make it this way, guys. I just don't see it this time around. Just don't see it. Yeah, that's what we needed before. Yeah. Reno hurts, guys. Reno hurts. But that we were in a great spot if not for the Reno, obviously. He would have been in a very, very rough predicament. He didn't even have a clear for our 5-2, as we saw from the ensuing plays he made. So we would have had lethal for sure without the Reno. But of course, Reno is a card, and he had Reno. And Reno is a prominent part of the meta, so that's a pretty big risk. But Reno's less likely from rank 25 to 20, becomes a little more likely from 2015. And sometimes they just don't have the Reno, right? And we killed him so fast. That was turn 7. So... And he was a pretty defensive deck anyway, so sometimes you'll just race them before Reno matters. But that's going to wrap it up for me and the gameplay of the Budget Burn Warlock. I really like this deck. It's really different. It's really fun. It's actually somewhat challenging to play just because you have to think about your own health and their resources and a lot of different things to consider. So it's good for new players in that it can help you grow and think about using your health as a resource and understanding... the value of board and really learning what your opponents have as a resource to kill you. Sometimes they may have burn in their deck, sometimes they might not. In knowing the meta and knowing what cards people have access to in certain archetypes of decks is really, really important to understanding when you can hurt yourself, when you can't, how to play safely, how to play aggressively, when to play your outs, all those different things. So if you thought this deck looked cool, you want to give it a shot, I think it's such a cool and interesting different kind of archetype that even if you're not a beginner or a budget player that this deck is designed for, maybe take it into casual mode and goof around with it a little bit and see how it goes. See how often you can kill yourself with the Budget Suicide Warlock, as it perhaps ought to be called. But if you have any thoughts or comments or questions about this deck, I'm happy to read them all and I'll do my best to answer what I can. So until then, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.